I'm Jimmy Ibbotson.
I'm Lynn Eisaguirre.
Welcome to the summer issue of our second year of Sea Fans.
Summer means a lot of different things to people. Picnics, baseball, swimming.
Ice cream, movies, nitty-gritty dirt band concert tours. But to the dedicated diver, summer means one thing. It's the high season for diving adventure.
And around the world, in most places, the water's warmer and clearer, and divers have more travel time. So we're going to get you ready for the season with some grand summer choices.
Probably nothing means summer more than California. So we're going to start this issue off right here on the Monterey Peninsula, where we found California divers to be among the world's hardiest.
And the California shoreline offers a bounty of undersea adventures, plus the chance to sharpen shore diving skills. The Monterey Peninsula is a wide sweep of sea and shore, and within its boundaries lie a number of different marine habitats. For the diver, Monterey offers an opportunity available nowhere else, the chance to study a unique underwater world, and to do so in a special aquarium before getting wet.
Unlike most other multifaceted aquariums around the world, the Monterey Bay Aquarium is devoted solely to the ocean environment of Monterey Bay. Over the years, many fishermen have tapped this bay, but it was the Lampera nets brought by the Sicilian fishermen at the turn of the century that made the area famous for the sardine years.
By 1945, there was a record catch of this silvery harvest of 5,000 tons. Yet shortly thereafter, the sardines, answering some unknown call, moved on. No one knows if they were overfished or simply moved farther south. The canneries shut their doors. In 1978, several biologists at Stanford University's Hopkins Marine Station proposed opening an aquarium at the site of the dormant Hovden Cannery next door on Cannery Row. The new design reflects the old cannery.
If you stop by the aquarium before your first dive, it will enrich your stay here. The exhibits bring the ocean environments to life and are well interpreted by guides and videos, assisting visitors to understand the displays. Each exhibit reflects a different kind of marine ecosystem.
Many divers may be drawn first to the kelp forest. Monterey boasts the only living kelp forest in an aquarium tank, and it stands 3 stories high. The exhibit's a marvel of aquarium science and engineering. We asked Dave Powell, the aquarium's director of husbandry, to explain how it all works. Tell me about the kelp exhibit. Was that a challenge to create?
In fact, it was our riskiest aquarium. I mean, nobody ever done it before. Nobody was really sure if it was going to work. And as you see, it actually turned out a lot better than we'd even hoped. We tried to meet the physical requirements of the kelp plants, and that is nutrient-rich water, water movement, and abundance of natural daylight. And with those 3 things met, the kelp thrived, and it's doing extremely well. Right now it's growing at about 5 inches per day. The canopy will grow dense enough so that it starts blocking off the light to the lower part of the tank. So we do have to trim it about once a month.
I hear you have a special machine that you designed to create surge in the kelp aquarium. Can you tell me about that?
To achieve the water movement that the kelp requires, we have this, basically it's like a huge plunger which goes up and down every 6 seconds, and this produces a back and forth movement in the kelp tank of about 2 feet. It's built pretty much like a giant an oil derrick with a big plunger on the end of it, and it seems to work very well.
Spending some time gazing at the kelp tank may make most divers ready to get wet. Yet before you plunge into a tangled mass of kelp in the bay, it's highly advisable to take an orientation dive with a local dive shop. Took me 4 minutes to get in my suit. If you're a warm water diver, dealing with the cold water, lower visibility, additional weight, and kelp can require a little practice. Al and Lori Welga of Aquarius Dive Shop in Monterey provide a full-service dive shop with all kinds of instruction and rentals. They frequently lead trips to a popular dive site off Point Lobos, the marine reserve just south of the town of Monterey.
One place to dive here is Whalers Cove, where only a limited number of divers are allowed on any day. There's convenient parking, and you can walk right into the water.
So what's the best technique for getting in here? I like to go to this side.
Once you dive into the kelp forest, a whole new world awaits. may make you nervous at first, kelp can be an aid to divers. The direction the kelp moves can tell you which way the current is flowing. To be safe, always ascend with a reserve of air so that you can find a clear opening to the surface.
From the holdfast of the plant on the rocks, the kelp stalks reach 20, 30, sometimes even 100 feet high, growing faster than 10 inches a day. The canopy can be so thick it creates an eerie half-light, or even a darkness close to night diving. Yet, in some places, the sun shines through in dramatic rays. These giant forests shelter their own community of life. Look for turban snail and kelp crabs climbing up the blades. Fish like golden senoritas and kelp perch cruise around the fronds. Closer to the rocks, you'll find all kinds of stars and crabs.
Crabs, urchins, and abalone all nibble on the fronds. Then the sea stars and rockfishes eat the nibblers. Sea cucumbers clean up the remains on the floor. Near the bottom, seaweed grows like a line of shrubs, and red algae provides a carpet, a hiding place for more crabs and kelp fishes. The kelp forest is constantly changing with the season, the tides, and the currents. Yet in the aquarium or the bay, it remains a community that provides a rich harvest. Dave, why an aquarium with just Monterey Bay marine life? What's unique about the marine environment here?
Well, I think it's probably a very rich area, being adjacent to the submarine canyon here. They get upwelling of nutrient-rich water, which leads to very rich plankton blooms, which in turn leads to all the animals that in the food chain following that. So there's both a very rich abundance and also a high diversity of marine life. So.
Perhaps the most dramatic of the residents of the bay are the open water dwellers that feed on the plankton, or the fish that eat the smaller creatures that eat the plankton. In the aquarium, the blue water animals are represented by the Monterey Bay tank, with its collection of every kind of shark that lives in the area. The 7-gill sharks and spiny dogfish in this tank never stop swimming, since they need water streaming past their gills to breathe. Scientists found that sharks swimming in circular tanks expend too much energy navigating the turns, so the aquarium built an hourglass-shaped design with turnarounds at each end. Now the 90-foot straightaway gives the sharks a long path to breathe and to rest in.
Out in the open ocean of the bay, we see a whole pod of dolphins from our dive boat, the Cypress Sea. Whales and dolphins are common sights here, an extra bonus for divers. Underwater, other blue water dwellers thrive in the bay. Perhaps the most curious are the squid that jet through the open sea. Their arms steer as they dash up and down, searching for prey. Each squid trails 10 arms. 2 of them are lethal. These they use to fire out and wrap around fishes. The squid school in immense numbers around the bay in the spring, early summer, and fall. Yet they have to stop their darting to mate and lay eggs on the sandy floor in bizarre masses.
Inevitably, some of these squid end up in another famous Monterey spot, Fisherman's Wharf. Here, the fish markets call them calamari, and the restaurants along the wharf prepare them in a variety of ways. At one time, the wharf was the exclusive territory of the fishermen who unloaded the great catches, immortalized by John Steinbeck in Cannery Row. But today, Fisherman's Wharf welcomes visitors from around the world to its shops, restaurants, and markets. What's fresh here?
Everything.
Yeah, that salmon looks beautiful.
And you've got this, you just come in.
You can even fish, feed the sea lions, or take a whale watching cruise from the wharf.
Monterey has two other major piers, one for the Coast Guard and one for the small commercial fishing industry that still survives. And below these wharfs is yet another special marine environment. Divers in the bay will also find the community around the piers thriving. Barnacles, mussels, tunicates, and tube worms ring the pilings.
The Monterey wharfs are themselves monuments to her colorful history. They date back to the original Presidio, founded by the Spanish through the governor of California and Father Seda, a Franciscan monk and leader of the California missions. Local historians have preserved this Spanish heritage in the Path of History, a series of more than 40 adobe structures in a 3-mile area. Visitors can tour the original Customs House and the Pacific House, as well as a trail of plazas and courtyards.
But exploring the streets of Monterey inevitably leads the visitor back to the sea to explore the rocky coastline. The shore itself is yet another complete bay habitat, home to the otters, harbor seals, and sea lions.
The aquarium has saved several orphaned otters for its collection, aided by around-the-clock nursing from an army of volunteers. Part of the aquarium's success comes from the work of over 400 volunteers, including 64 divers used by the aquarium to support the complex ecosystem and inform and entertain visitors.
A couple of other facts about sea otters: they can dive to a depth of around 100 feet, and they stay underwater 3 or 4 minutes easily.
Randy Wilder, the aquarium's chief of dive operations, supervises some of these dedicated marine enthusiasts.
We've got about 35 divers certified here that are on the staff, research divers, divers for the education department, for the facilities doing maintenance diving on our intake system mostly, and then of course the aquarists who do the majority of the collecting of the animals for these exhibits. We also have 65 volunteer divers. They come in teams of 8, 3 times a week. They're responsible for doing most of the maintenance inside our major exhibits. They vacuum up all the stuff off the bottom, they feed all the invertebrate animals, and then they come in at other times to do feeding shows for us. Let's see, what else do they do? We've got artificial rock panels in these exhibits, and when we want them to look good and want a fresh change, that means thinking ahead a few years. Build a duplicate set, we'll take it out, tie it up somewhere out in Monterey Bay and let life grow on it, and then after a few years of that happening, we'll bring it back in.
Volunteers and visitors alike watch the rocks outside the aquarium where sea lions and harbor seals like to sun themselves. In the bay, you'll see otters snacking on their backs and fluffing to groom their fur. All that movement isn't just play, it's essential to keep the animals alive. Underwater, too, divers may be lucky enough to swim with the sea lions. The otters are protected by law, however, and chasing them on scuba may be considered unlawful harassment.
Another place where volunteers of the aquarium play a part is with the Tide Pool exhibit. Volunteers help adults and kids alike study this part of the rocky shore environment around Monterey. More exploration of the rocky shore of the bay and its wonderful beaches reveals other creatures. The aquarium hosts seabirds like avocets, sandpipers, and stilts. But to explore the best of the sand environments around Monterey, divers may wish to take a side trip south to Carmel, where pearly white sand provides a playground for locals and visitors.
The city of Carmel is a base for power shopping and celebrity scouting. The 1 square mile area is both a picture-perfect slice of California history and a sophisticated mix of restaurants, shops, and galleries. The Carmel Mission is one of California's best preserved. Founded by the same Father Serra who sited the Presidio on Monterey Harbor, Serra moved the mission to Carmel when he decided that the rowdy fishing village of Monterey was a bad influence on his novice priests. Pushing past Carmel, travelers discover Big Sur, the land of crashing surf, panoramic vistas, and even more great beaches.
Yet Monterey remains the center of activity for divers in this rich area. Divers from the Bay Area, as well as locals, mine the rich waters of the bay. On weekends, the beach near the Coast Guard Pier is usurped by battalions of divers marching to the sea in formation. Some are being certified, others are taking refresher or advanced courses. Aquarius Dive Shop provides equipment and instruction, with one shop located right on the pier and another in town. Divers around Monterey can enter the water from several beaches or ride a boat to the deep reefs and seamounts offshore.
The Cypress Sea is a fast boat run by the San Jose Dive Shop of any water sports, with a well-trained and fun-loving staff.
Anyway, have fun!
Freshwater showers, hot coffee, and plenty of room to stow gear make the diving easy. The Holiday 2 is under the new ownership of Tim Smith. Smitty is completely refurbishing this stable fishing vessel to create a first-class California dive boat. Either of these boats, or Lynn May's craft, the Silver Prince, which pioneered boat diving in the area, take divers to the rocky canyons and colorful walls of the deep reefs. At 60 to 90 feet, the walls are covered with anemones, cup corals, sponges, stars, and graceful white metridiums. The elegant metridiums thrive in the nutrient-rich waters of the bay. So do other anemones, like these Pachysorianthus that color the rocky slopes and sprout from sandy bottoms between the reefs. Other curious bottom dwellers patrol these far from barren plains.
The Monterey Peninsula offers a variety of accommodation options for divers. Nearby Pebble Beach is a bastion of luxury resorts, graceful mansions, and world-class golf courses. Many San Francisco Bay Area residents seem to favor bringing their own sleeping quarters. They park campers or mobile homes right near the beach. For those who prefer a hotel, one of the most popular is the Monterey Bay Inn. Located right over a dive site on the beach, this well-decorated and roomy inn provides individual terraces and continental breakfast. In addition, showers and dive lockers are handy on the bottom level. But one of the best features of this first-class inn remains the mesmerizing views of the bay from one of the two hot tubs.
What would California be without hot tubs?
I don't know. It's a great way to wind up a day sightseeing in Monterey, to just sit here and soak up the views of the bay.
It ain't bad.
The Monterey Peninsula provides great variety for the diver. Every square inch of the bay seems to reveal new treasures of ocean life. Yet the novice to California diving should know that the diving here, while spectacular, can vary. Visibility ranges from 5 feet to 50, although on rare days it can exceed 100. And the diving can change completely from one day to the next. Generally, the fall and winter months, when plankton growth is the lowest, provide the best visibility.
The water temperature also, while always requiring a good quarter-inch wetsuit, varies from 50 to 56 degrees on the surface, down to as low as 45 degrees due to the deep water upwellings. Especially in winter, dry suits have become popular for local sport divers. The climate around the bay is temperate and doesn't vary that much with the seasons, but be sure to bring a sweater for the evening in the boat and some kind of rain protection, no matter what time of the year.
Then, too, the currents, surf, and kelp can be tricky for the novice California diver.
We strongly recommend that you be accompanied by a local instructor or dive master on your first few California dives, even if you're an experienced Caribbean diver. Yet for the experienced California diver, or the novice with a local guide, the extra time and thermal protection are worth it. If you're a diver jaded by tropical reefs, exploring a rich kelp forest or the rocky shores of Monterey is like jumping into the oceans of another planet. Here you'll once again discover the pleasures most divers seek. That sense of awe of the creatures of the sea and oneness with the living earth itself. If you've never tried a live-aboard dive boat because you thought you wouldn't be comfortable aboard one, then you'll be interested in our feature boat this issue.
The Coral Star is a luxury dive yacht, almost like a small cruise ship, with a diverse itinerary.
Whether you're used to the lifestyle of the rich and famous or just want to see how the other half lives, try a week aboard the dive yacht Coral Star. elegance is the word that immediately comes to mind. Imagine a dive vacation with formal dining on linen tablecloths, a uniformed crew, closed-circuit TV in every room, and a launch that will take you to shore without ruining your clothes. This boat is clearly a luxury dive yacht. But calm Caribbean seas and avid divers are a new scene. Built in 1955 to withstand the North Sea's fierce weather, the Coral Star served Greenland and the Faroe Islands as a hospital ship for 20 years. She was converted to a newspaper tycoon's corporate yacht in 1977. Then, last year, she was refitted with tanks and a compressor to serve divers. But her luxury remains. Her polished mahogany woodwork, spiral staircase, and elegantly appointed salon gives the atmosphere of an old-world hotel. In fact, you may feel slightly out of place at first wandering around in your swimsuit, but the crew's cordial welcome will quickly put you at ease. If you're lucky enough to get one of the 2 main deck cabins, you'll have a full-size double bed, good-sized closets, and picture windows.
Relax with a warm soak. Imagine a dive boat with bathtubs.
Large freshwater tanks and onboard desalinization units mean plenty of water. The Coral Star's weekly itinerary gives you the opportunity to dive 2 very different areas of the Eastern Caribbean, the British Virgin Islands and Saba. You'll board the boat in Tortola and spend 3 days cruising the BVI's calm, protected waters. The Coral Star's 115-foot length and 3 decks will take a little time to explore. There are never more than 18 guests aboard at a time, so there's always room to slip away from the group for some private time and tanning. But don't miss the opportunity to catch the sunset and socialize on the boat deck bar.
The casual elegance of the Coral Star continues with dinner in a separate dining room, with enticing food, great company, and splendid service. Thank you, Helen.
Most of the diving in the Virgin Islands will be Jacques Cousteau style from a Zodiac. Although this may cut down on your freedom to slip off the back whenever you wish, the crew makes the experience painless by helping with tanks and other equipment. There are 3 dive instructors aboard, so completing your open water certification or taking a specialty class is no problem. The Coral Star carries a full complement of rental gear and has an onboard boutique offering souvenirs and anything you may have forgotten to bring. Orca dive computers and Sony video cameras are also available for rent.
Underwater, the British Virgin Islands offer exciting, diversified diving. You'll find colorful coral reefs with abundant marine life. At sites like the Indians, you can explore rock formations with tunnels and caverns.
Then there's the historic wreck of the Rhone. This Royal Mail carrier sank during a sudden hurricane in 1867. Parts of the motion picture The Deep were filmed here. Today, it provides a well-preserved look at a 19th century steamship.
If you don't dive or just want to dry off for a while, ask the crew to take you ashore in the 22-foot diesel launch. Its single-cylinder engine makes a sound reminiscent of the African Queen. Don't miss the dramatic rock formations of the Baths on Virgin Gorda. The calm waters here are a favorite anchorage for visiting yachts, and it's a great place to try water skiing behind the Coral Star's Swift inflatable. Midweek, it's off to Saba, an overnight passage from the Virgin Islands. The possibility of heavy seas and open water will make you appreciate the size and weight of the Coral Star. At 230 gross tons, she's twice the weight of most live-aboard dive boats, which means increased stability and comfort. Although she's a 30-year-old vessel, the Coral Star has the latest electronic aids, including SatNav, the satellite navigation system. Dawn breaks over the crown jewel of the Eastern Caribbean, Saba. From a distance, this pinnacle island rises straight up from the sea and seems to disappear into the mist. Dutch settlers colonized Saba in the 1640s, giving the rugged island its old-world charm today. The Coral Star hooks up to one of the 16 new mooring buoys installed in a cooperative effort with the Saba Marine Parks Department. These buoys protect the fragile underwater environment while allowing the boat to anchor right over the dive sites. At Saba, you'll be able to dive whenever you want by taking a giant stride right off the side. What makes Saba diving unique are the dramatic walls dropping straight down from the surface. Look up to see the surging waves above you. Rock beauties feast on damselfish eggs, creating a colorful feeding frenzy. Elkhorn corals, sand chutes, and lava flows are other dramatic sights here. Further out, spectacular seamounts, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, and the Third Encounter emerge from the depths to shelter large pelagics. The designation dive yacht separates the Coral Star from most other liveaboards. Foremost, it is a yacht with all the luxury and creature comforts that this label implies. Continental cuisine is prepared by a professionally trained European chef. The uniformed crew is ready to serve you in every way. Your non-diving spouse or companion won't feel left out. But be prepared to get in less bottom time than you might achieve on a less glamorous liveaboard. The Coral Star's itinerary and Saba's deep dives are limiting, so you won't get in the 4 or 5 dives every day that you may get on another boat. The cost compares to other liveaboards, however, so it's your choice. Maximum bottom time, or a wonderful sampling of the lifestyle of the rich and famous.
I'm sure almost every diver has encountered a barracuda in the water and been just a little intimidated by its toothy grin.
Well, I have. I'm never quite sure if they're hungry or hostile or hardly aware of me.
Well, in our Marine Life Close-Up, we're going to learn a bit more about this often misunderstood fish.
The thing most divers wonder and perhaps worry about when they spy barracuda are their teeth. Sometimes you may sense a barracuda's piercing eyes even before you see them. They will stay around a diver, gazing curiously, but usually maintain a safe distance of 20 or 30 feet. Frequently, they retreat if you approach, but then they'll follow you if you move away, like a shy or stray dog. A few dive masters have managed to convince their local barracuda to accept food from their hands, but that's a rare accomplishment. The barracuda's teeth are different from many other fish. They lack a protrusible upper jaw with which to suck up their prey. But they have, in evolutionary terms, an older, less advanced jaw. It's fused together in order to support a fierce array of large, sharp teeth. What effect the sight of these well-designed biting machines might have on other fishes is unknown, but to the novice diver, they're unsettling. However, scientists have noted only 30 reported attacks involving a barracuda, and almost all were either in murky water, where the barracuda evidently thought the diver was a fish, or when a flashing object like jewelry or a spear was mistaken for a wounded fish. A greater danger to man may be fish poisoning. While young specimens are said to be good eating, large ones have caused toxic reactions. Yet, even if the teeth are generally of no threat to the diver, they are to other fish. Unlike most fishes, the barracuda use their biting ability to capture prey. They can't expand their jaws to accommodate large fish, so they often bite their food into 2 or more pieces, circling back to pick up the hunks. Although there are 20 species of barracuda around the world, only 3 are found in the Caribbean. And the most common and largest is the great barracuda. The great barracuda ranges in tropical and temperate waters around the world, except in the eastern Pacific and the Mediterranean Sea. In the West Atlantic, you'll find them from the New England coast to southeastern Brazil, including the Gulf of Mexico. Barracuda are generally solitary hunters, but sometimes congregate in large schools, apparently as part of their mating behavior. The great barracuda is distinguished by a lower number of lateral line scales and black blotches on its lower side. The fish can change color to match its environment. When near the bottom, the great barracuda can show a pattern of 7 bars over its body. Young barracuda have a dark lateral stripe which becomes a blotched pattern as the fish mature. The great barracuda has been reported to reach a length of 10 feet, but it's rare that it exceeds 5. So when you see a barracuda, don't be afraid to return its curious gaze. and spend some time with these well-designed hunters.
Jimmy, have you ever been on a group dive trip?
You mean like when the Sea-Fan crew tries to get from here to there with their 30 pieces of luggage and all the people and stuff?
No, I was thinking of vacations to exotic destinations put together by your dive instructor or dive store. It's a great way to meet new people, and every year more divers are finding group trips to be convenient and fun.
So we sent our director of photography, Scott Ogle, on such a trip. He checked out the pluses and the minuses of touring along with 31 other divers on a trip to romantic Roatan.
Less than 100 miles offshore from strife-torn mainland Honduras lies the quiet, peaceful island of Roatan. The largest of the Bay Islands, Roatan looks the part of a tropical paradise, with dense jungle-covered hillsides, creamy white beaches, and reefs with marine life that make this island a favorite dive destination. Of course, many divers discover Roatan on their own, but when you're heading this far afield, a group tour can provide an extra margin of savings, convenience, and fun. So how do you join a group trip? Well, check out your local dive store first. Many dive retailers, like High Country Dive and Travel in Aurora, Colorado, lead several tours each year. Their experience and expertise can really help new divers like John and Pam Edson choose a destination.
I've been diving since 1983.
And I've been diving for about 2 years. We just completed our advanced diving certification and we won a belated honeymoon. What trips do you have for us available?
For a trip that offers a lot of atmosphere, and I think one of the most romantic destinations that we have to offer, I recommend Anthony's Key Resort in the Roatan, in the Bay Islands off Honduras. This is a destination that offers several activities as well as one of the best dive sites that we have available. There's also horseback riding, tennis, trips into the jungle, even a full-service casino right on site.
The Edsons say they never even considered going to Roatan alone.
We wanted to be with people we knew. We wanted to make sure that any instructions were given clearly because we are new divers. We're looking to have a good diving experience rather than having troubles communicating with a dive master or an instructor, something like this.
A butcher, a baker, a video magazine maker. You'll meet folks from all walks of life on a typical group dive trip. Patsy Goodman's traveled around the world, but is looking forward to her first dive tour.
I am a wildlife biologist, and so professionally, diving opens up just a whole new environment for me that I've never had an opportunity to pursue. I think that for safety and just for fun reasons, that it's a good idea to go with a group and with people who've had some experience diving. And I think it'll just be fun being with people from Denver that I've never met before and who are entering into a sport just as I am, and perhaps develop some new friendships.
Construction manager Al Capella is also a qualified dive master with several group trips under his belt.
Like most divers, I first went on trips by myself and found that I was enjoying diving, but I had no one to really discuss the dive with besides my dive buddy. And at the end of the day, that dive buddy went one direction and I went off in another direction. So I decided to take a group trip one time, and it was thoroughly enjoyable because it turned into a 24-hour-a-day dive party.
John Shaw is another group trip veteran who takes off for the Caribbean whenever his job with the phone company permits.
I always like to go with a group because the people are trained the same as I am, and it makes for more safety for me, more safety for the other people who are going.
The Roatan trip will be computer software teacher Beth Toder and her husband's second dive outing.
This is the first group trip that I'll be taking. I've been diving since about a year ago. We took our first trip to Cozumel a year ago, October. We went by ourselves, We were there for 10 days, and it was great. Absolutely great.
But this time you chose a group. Why?
We chose the group this time because of the package deal that we could get through High Country Divers. Everything was taken care of. And we wanted to see what a group trip was like. We've never done this, this angle before.
Chiropractor Jeff Main didn't think twice about joining the trip.
Scott, who is with High Country Dive and Travel, just called me up and said, how would you like to go where the sun is bright and hot and the water blue and the beach is white and you get to eat all you want, ride horses, sail? And he said, you know where we're going? And I said, Roatan? He said, yeah, do you want to go? And I said, absolutely.
The next skill that we're going to perform, now that we've gotten your masks off you and back on you, we're going to do no mask swimming. The objective of this skill, don't like that, huh? The objective of this skill is if you lost your mask down at depth and you could not locate it, put it back on your face, you have to be able to get to the surface without a mask on.
After an intense weekend learning new skills in the pool, Bob and Elizabeth Merrill plan to complete their open water training on the Roatan trip. Others will use it to take advanced and dive specialty courses.
Welcome to High Country Divers. Welcome to the pre-trip party to Roatan. You guys all ready to go to Roatan? Yeah. First of all, I'm Scott. I'll be one of your group leaders. My wife Lynn. She'll be their other group leader this evening. We're going to go through, do a little bit of introductions. We want to meet all of you folks. We're going to meet the folks from Sea-Fans, and Scott Ogle is going to tell us what's going on with Sea-Fans and how they're going to film the trip.
All 31 group members have a chance to meet for the first time about a month before the trip, as well as handle the necessary paperwork and find answers to their questions.
I wanted to ask a question about the open water certification, since there are just 3 of us getting that done. Is that going to seriously hamper us being able to enjoy the trip, since our first day is going to be just doing our open waters?
Not at all. It will not hamper your diving. The first day you'll be doing open water dives 1 and 2 with a snorkel probably in the afternoon. The second day you'll be ready to go out with the group. We'll do a shallow dive and you'll be able to join right in. We'll complete dives 4 and 5 and you'll be certified. So you'll have plenty of time to dive with the rest of the group. You'll pass.
The big day starts early with a 5:30 a.m. departure. Day of flying, the group gets its first taste of the tropics while changing planes in La Ceiba on the Honduran mainland. I've been looking forward to my first ride in a DC-3, but instead we're loaded into a more modern aircraft for the short hop on to Roatan. Mandy Wagner, the manager of Anthony's Key Resort, meets us at the airport and supervises transferring the group to open-air cabs for the trip across the island. Anthony's Key is located on the northwest side of Roatan. It's the largest hotel and dive operation here, but there are several other choices available, including Cocoa View for divers who want to stay on the south side.
All right, folks. First of all, I want to say welcome to AKR. We're really glad that you're here this week, and we're looking forward to giving you guys a real good time. And before I go any further, I want to explain to you how you sign up here on this boat for your dives.
After a quick checkout of dive skills and buoyancy control, it's off to Overheat Reef. Most dive sites here are so close the boats return to the resort between dives. The High Country group gets 2 boats for our exclusive use.
So I think we'll just let Al lead the group this time. And
Okay, you got that. Where's your
keep an eye on
gauge?
everybody if you're feeling
Oh, it's great. Oh, a lot of fish down there. I saw a baby eel. It was about that big. Sneaking out of a little hole and coming out just like the big ones.
There aren't as many fish as I thought there'd be, but the ones that are there are so colorful. And we saw these little tiny ones with these purple dots on them, and they just glowed. It was incredible. And black ones with these white around their fins. Unreal. It's another world. A complete another world. I'm going back in as soon as I can get some more air.
So after a quick trip back to Anthony's Key for more air and a few tardy divers who got up late, we head back out to take the plunge again.
Man, don't drink the water here.
Huh?
Don't drink the water.
Don't drink it.
Drink and drive, you know that? What we got here right under the boat is around 20 feet of water. Up in front is the highlight. That's about the places you want to go. There's a series of little sand chutes and crevices and little edges that carves under. There's all within 50 feet of water. This afternoon we're just staying 50 feet for 60 minutes. Okay, 50 feet for 1 hour.
Back at the dock, Lynn Taylor's open water certification class is coming along nicely.
You all seem real calm in the water. It helps to do a little bit of swimming around. The skills went great.
A ferry takes us the 100 yards to our hotel rooms, bungalows perched out over the water on Anthony's Key. The Key provides a private refuge that's separate from, yet convenient to, the resort's dive operations, photo center, casino, and restaurant. It takes a vigorous hour-long hike to reach the summit of 300-foot-tall Driftwood Hill to see the entire resort spread out below.
Curveball. It's all on the wrist. All on the wrist.
Back on the Key, there's time for some hardcore relaxation and some horseplay before gearing up for more diving, this time to Half Moon Bay. We descend through a sand chute to encounter a tiny seahorse. Many spiny urchins make their home in the nooks and crannies of this reef. But be sure to wear gloves if you take one out for a closer look. This entire reef seems designed for macro photography. But what's this? Lynn's class is just completing their final exam before graduation and the new diver's opportunity to explore the reef for the first time. first reef dive for a long, long time. One big reason for going on a group trip is so someone else can handle the tacky details. But midway through the week, tour leaders Scott and Lynn Taylor seem to have everything well under control.
Well, I think Roatan, of all the places that we go, is the easiest location to bring someone because they're almost overly accommodating. They make it easy. They serve all your food for you. They do it with a smile on their face, which sounds kind of silly, but you don't get that in all the tropical resorts that you go to.
There's usually not problems because, first of all, when you're traveling with a group, the airlines and the hotels are concerned about your satisfaction because they don't have just one person or two people when there's a group that will complain, but they'll have a whole group. So generally there aren't problems because they're aware of this and they try to do everything they can to make sure that the group is pleased.
Although they said all meals are included, does that mean you have to share your breakfast with a macaw?
No.
It's Wednesday, and the group is ready for some new scenery, so we head out to dive West End Wall. It's further away than the other sites, so the resort prepares a beach picnic. Mandy Wagner leads a group on horseback to join us.
So you gonna have
The dive guides have caught an iguana, considered a local delicacy.
How do you cook them?
You kill them first.
Just skin them? You don't eat the
No, you put a stick there, you get a straw. You get a straw. Put it right in there. Put a hole right here.
We're under attack. The crew comes to battle stations and prepares to repel boarders. A hit. We've got them on the run, but call a truce when dolphins are spotted below. It's an entire pod spreading to the horizon. We quickly grab snorkels and hop in to join them.
I'll never forget that dive.
That was a good dive.
Yeah. We
Because
saw
the second part of it was full of dolphins.
Yeah. The
40 or
dolphin-
50 of them.
Oh.
There was 1,000 dolphins.
Hundreds.
Millions of dolphins all over.
Hundreds of dolphins. They were just everywhere. I swam with them. I got close enough almost to touch. Almost. An arm's length away. If I could have gone deeper, I would have touched them. And that was really neat because they were all around me. They were beneath me. They were around the sides. I'd never seen so many dolphins. They were swimming in pairs and playing with each other. And there was one that was playing with me. It'd swim out and then it'd come back around towards me and go deeper and then it'd do the same thing. It was playing with me, but I couldn't touch it.
And you never know who you're going to run into on a dive trip.
We've met some really nice people.
We didn't know any of these people before we came down here. We've met some really super people, met some really nice friends, and we've met some people that we just stay away from.
And it's
so
easy to do.
it's been, a little 50-50. But you don't have to be around those people, and the people that you do meet are great, and we'll probably get with them in Denver because we're all from Denver, and we'll probably go out and talk about our trip and the dolphins.
Yeah, the dolphins.
As we board the DC-3 to start the long trip home, we realize that in addition to our memories of the week together, we've forged a group identity and new friendships that will last a lifetime.
Those of us who work in front of the camera may appear to have a pretty easy job. But if you've ever tried to model for your dive buddy, then you may know that it takes certain skills.
Development of those skills is the subject of our photo clinic this issue with Patty Mount. Patty's the author of a book and creator of a specialty certification course on underwater modeling.
CFAN's reporter Carol Montgomery chatted with Patty about hints for models, whether they be professional or just beginning.
In prior CFAN's photo clinics, we've introduced you to some very special and dynamic underwater photographers. We've also looked at each individual's winning methods and techniques. But what we haven't explored yet is what it's like to be on the other side of the camera.
Patty Schaefer Mount is a professional model, above and below the water. You may have seen her work in Skin Diver, Ocean Realm, or Scuba Times. Patty is best known in the diving world for developing and instructing a NAUI Specialty Certification course for divers who would like to become underwater models. The Seafans Video Magazine crew caught up with Patty in Eisaguirre, Puerto Rico, where she was busy teaching her NAUI course to Suzanne Acevedo, a native-born Puerto Rican dive instructor.
So what we'll remember to do is to extend the legs and the toes, okay, for very graceful lines.
Okay, I don't remember about tweaks my body. Can you explain more about that now?
Sure.
I don't remember.
Let's pretend that where your tank and rig is the camera, okay? Now, as you remember what we discussed yesterday, we're going to turn our body and the hips at approximately a 45-degree angle away from the camera in order to slim the hip and the waistline. In order to develop the chest line, we're going to turn it into the camera, okay? And bring the arms back down.
Diving with you yesterday, I couldn't help but to notice that under the water you exude such a special sense of freedom and tranquility. Is that something that's a product of a lot of hard work and training, or is that just your inner self coming out?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that because I have gone through an enormous amount of training, and I'm sure that that has helped me to be the diver that I am today. I find being in the water a very comfortable, at-home situation for me. So maybe that's part of it too.
How do you prepare yourself both physically and mentally before a photography session under the water?
One of the most important things that I've done for myself is to keep myself aerobically fit and in condition for what is a very stressful job. And from there, I have done a lot of studying of photography and modeling to have a better understanding of all the different facets involved. And that has helped prepare me very well. Also, I always try to understand the area that I'm traveling to so that I can be prepared both clothing-wise and equipment-wise to deal with whatever situation may be in front of me. One of the situations that I become involved in is having to remain stationary, as you just mentioned. And one of the best techniques that I use that has helped me to prevent silting situations, which is very common when you have several people working together, is I use a lot of sculling motions with my hands. And also I use a sculling type of motion with my feet and legs, which would extend my legs in sort of a scissor type motion as opposed to the regular kick. It helps me to remain stationary and not silt out the situation.
How do you communicate underwater with the photographer?
In the beginning, communicating underwater is very difficult. After one starts working with a photographer for a while, you start to create some of your own hand signals, eye movements, head movements, because you always have to remember that the photographer's hands are usually full of equipment. So very often if there is a miscommunication and the photographer is there shaking his head no, sometimes I will do the signals myself and ask the photographer, is this what you mean? And in that way we're able to get the story straight and continue on with the shoot.
Let's move underwater now to watch Patty demonstrate several of her modeling techniques.
Using this conch shell as a prop, we wanted to demonstrate how if we put the seashell in between the model's face and the source of light, it would cast a shadow over the model's face. Now we're going to see Suzanne posing with the conch shell as well. Notice how when she places the conch shell in between her mask and the source of light, she also has a blacked out or shaded mask. Now we'll see her moving it slightly over to the side, holding it so that the light source can enter her mask and have her face very nicely lit. In this sequence, you're going to be watching me as I scull back and forth to get myself into position over this coral. Notice how I do not move my legs around very much. Most of the movement is with my hands to back up. Notice also that, as I said before, I don't move very much. The leg that's closer to the camera, I hold up high in the water. As I'm getting ready to come in for the pose, I'll bring it down on the downstroke as though I had actually been swimming all the way along. Swimming along on the reef, we notice these telestation corals growing underneath this little ledge. Due to the fact that if your air bubbles go upwards onto the telestation coral, they will cause percolation down in front of the model and thus create flashback from the strobe light. I prefer to hold my breath while I'm underneath ledges like this, and then I very gently, when I feel the need to breathe, push myself out from underneath the ledge, breathe a few times to make sure that I breathe off the CO2 that's built up from holding my breath, and then I go back into position under the telestation coral. Traveling over the side of the wall, we came across these very beautiful black coral trees in deepwater Gorgonia. I decided that this would be a perfect setup for me to try out a vertical stride pose. Notice the flow of the body, the extension of the legs all the way down through the feet. Also, my lower body is approximately at a 45-degree angle to the camera, which again would slim the hips. The upper body turned back into the camera, which would augment the upper body. Notice how sometimes I might look at the camera, whereas other times I'd be looking at the subject at hand. Now you'll see Suzanne and I playing switch. As you can see, Suzanne is in position, but she's having a little bit of difficulty. Her body seems to be a little bit stiff, and her legs a little bit rigid. With practice and time, she will become much more comfortable in the water with these modeling techniques, and the flow and ease and gracefulness of the pose will soon come to her. Cruising along on the reef, we spied this very pretty yellow basket sponge. So we decided to try some shots on it, pretending that I was posing for a still camera. Notice how low down and very close to the sponge I am in this sequence. That's mainly because I'm posing for a moving camera that does not have as wide an angle as, say, a 15mm lens on an Iconis would. If we were using a 15mm lens on an Iconis, I would most likely be placed higher above the sponge than I am here. In this sequence, we had spotted some very pretty elkhorn coral in the shallows amongst some surge. What we were trying to show here was how buoyancy control is an essential property of underwater modeling. Notice how I'm able to move myself around so easily, breathing and controlling myself. I'm in control at all times, and so can you be.
Now that more and more of you divers are doing at least part of your diving from your living room via VCR, we thought it's time to give you a look at a few of the underwater videos that you can enjoy right at home. For our equipment review, John Evans gives you a few of his personal picks and pans.
We created Seat Fans 2 years ago with our primary goal being to use the medium of video to communicate the experience of exploring and discovering planet ocean as a scuba diver. We thought that the action and immediacy of video and the convenience of the video cassette could vividly bring the total experience of diving home to you, the viewer. I guess since you're watching this now, you probably agree. In fact, lots of people these days are accumulating at least some of their bottom time electronically, as more and more videos relating to diving and marine topics are becoming available for home viewing. So we thought that you sea fans might be interested in taking a look at some of these other videos dealing with the underwater world and learning a little bit about them. My evaluations of these videos focus on one basic subjective criterion: how well they do the job that any video should do. That is, to effectively communicate something, whether it be entertainment or information, passion or inspiration. How well any video does that job generally depends upon a combination of at least 3 slightly more objective factors. The first is subject matter or content. Is it interesting, attention-holding, and is it presented in a coherent, well-organized fashion? The second is the basic technical quality of the pictures and soundtrack. Third is something called production values, the level of sophistication and professionalism of the equipment and personnel used in the production that are apparent from the finished program. With these criteria in mind, let's take a look at some videos that fall into 3 more or less distinct categories: documentaries, entertainment, and how-tos. CME Video from Florida has created and is distributing a scuba refresher course on video. It provides topic-by-topic coverage of basic diving principles with pool and open water demonstrations of the skills being discussed. The production values and picture quality aren't particularly high, not what you'd expect to see on broadcast television, for instance, but they are good enough that they don't detract from or interfere with the basic message of the program. It's well organized, written in a straightforward, readily understandable fashion, with video that does a good job of illustrating and enlivening the text.
Should an emergency arise, stop. Assess the situation, get control of yourself. Deliberately choose a course of action to alleviate the situation and don't panic.
I'd recommend it especially for the diver who's been inactive for a while and wants to brush up on some basic skills and principles before their next dive.
The diver with air maintains possession of...
Second category is what I would call generally entertainment. Videos that combine underwater images with music around a theme that's designed to entertain or to stimulate the emotions. One of my favorites continues to be Ocean Symphony from Al Giddings. We saw some excerpts from this tape in an earlier issue of C-Fans. Let's take a look at what makes for a good entertainment video. Ocean Symphony, distributed by MCA Home Video, is a 47-minute collection of 11 separate music videos on different marine topics. Each is simply introduced with a print placard relating to the theme of each piece. Al Giddings' visual images are rich and fascinating, shot on high-quality film with excellent lighting and color saturation. The editing is tasteful, and the original musical score complements each piece. For me, it's both a pleasure and an inspiration to watch, and it holds up well under repeated viewing. In sharp contrast is a video called The Reef from Rosebud Films in California. It's a similar format, a collage of underwater images accompanied by music, but the similarities end there. The picture quality of The Reef is mediocre, with dull colors and poor resolution. The camera work is sloppy with a lot of unsettling camera movement and long, wavering shots that don't really go anywhere. The editing is cuts only, which means the picture jumps abruptly from one underwater scene to the next, rather than using dissolves, which would recreate the flow of images that I know I experience underwater. If you want a restful, aesthetically pleasing viewing experience, you're probably better off with pro wrestling. However, I would recommend a video called The Worlds Below from a group called Sea Studios in Monterey, California. It too is a collection of short video essays set to music. Each piece focuses on a different aspect of the marine environment around Monterey. The video is shot on broadcast quality equipment, and the picture quality is excellent. The music for each piece, from a variety of new age composers and performers, and the editing both add appeal to the often unusual images. My favorite's a time-lapse study of starfish activity on the ocean floor. After about 30 minutes of music video, the program continues with a narration by Dr. Sylvia Earle explaining the biology of the marine life we've been viewing. It's a nice touch. Also in the entertainment vein is Scuba Run from Photon Video in Florida. It purports to be a feature film about a scuba adventure in Bonaire. By film standards, though, it's grade C at best. We get a banal story with insipid dialogue about a love-struck couple having fun underwater. But even the underwater segments are lackluster. The underwater picture quality is barely average, the sequences are pretty boring, and the music is trite and often inappropriate.
I think I'm in love.
I'm so glad you liked it. I really thought you would. Would you like to go tomorrow?
Sounds great. What about tonight?
Why don't we stay out here and snorkel for a little while?
It's the kind of production for home video that reflects badly on the whole genre. It gets a solid CFANS pan. Its lack of substance, though, really does make you thankful that there are good underwater documentaries out there. Broadcast classics like the Cousteau series or National Geographic specials are now available for home viewing. Atosha, The Quest for Treasure, The Sharks, Secrets of the Titanic, and The Great Whales, home video releases from Vestron Video of National Geographic broadcast specials, should be of interest to divers. The Great Whales is my favorite, in part because of the dramatic underwater footage, but each combines excellent picture quality, high production values, and a well-crafted storyline. Here's a sample.
These moments with whales often provoke almost mystical emotions that transcend fear. The sensation is truly overwhelming. A humpback looms overhead like a gigantic cloud, while the songs well in the deep like a concerto from some distant alien world.
Far less appealing is a video called Under the Sea, a part of the Crown Video Encyclopedia. It's billed as a children's educational program, and the puppet owl that introduces the show suggests that it's directed to a pre- or early primary school audience. However, the tone and the vocabulary of the narration seems geared to at least the high school level. The content itself is rather disjointed, being sometimes about diving and sometimes about marine life. More importantly for me, though, the inappropriateness of the show as a kids' program arises from the inordinately sinister picture it paints of marine life and the marine environment. For example, this combat between a crab and an octopus. It's not the kind of thing I'd want my kids to watch to acquire a love for planet ocean. For love of the sea, there's nothing like Jacques Cousteau. 10 titles from the Cousteau Odyssey television series have been released on video cassette by Warner Home Video. Like each of them, this chronicle of the search for Atlantis bears the very recognizable Cousteau documentary style. And although the underwater picture quality suffers from all the limitations of 16mm film, and the story sometimes drags or lapses into ponderousness, the programs, I think because of their unique content, make for fascinating viewing.
Elegant and alone, a coffee urn gleams in the light.
Another program that I found fascinating is a video release from Vestron of the Nova television special called Visions of the Deep. It's a documentary profile of underwater cinematographer Al Giddings and his work. The production is broadcast quality throughout, and the look it provides at some of the special equipment and special circumstances involved in Al's work should be interesting to any underwater enthusiast, even those who don't dive under the polar ice caps.
One of the discoveries was really quite beautiful. Fresh water leaching through the ice canopy would form crystal chandeliers of tiny spikes of ice, and if you were to run your hand through those chips of ice, they would twinkle with a sound very much like that sound you'd hear if you were to run your fingers through a crystal chandelier.
So now, while you're waiting for your next issue of CFANS to arrive, or for your next live dive, you might want to check out some of these additional opportunities for underwater viewing. Look for them at your professional dive store, some video stores. If you can't find them there, give us a call. We'll tell you how to get them. While we're on the subject of video, we at CFANS would like to acknowledge all of you out there who are creating your own underwater videos. In the next few issues of CFANS, we'll be featuring a review of some video equipment for the underwater enthusiast, and we'll have a photo clinic devoted to underwater video technique. Finally, since we obviously can't be everywhere underwater at once, we'd like to invite any of you who have captured some really special, dramatic, or unique aspect of planet ocean to become contributors to CFANS. Here's how. Send a good quality VHS copy of the best 2 minutes of what you've shot to CFANS, Eyes Below, Suite E, 7800 East Iliff, Denver, Colorado, 80231. Enclose a self-addressed stamp envelope if you want your copy returned. If we're interested in using what you've sent, we'll contact you and make appropriate arrangements. We look forward to the possibility of seeing some of your work on CFANS and to your continuing enjoyment of the finest in underwater video, now that it's not such a rare medium. This is John Evans.
Thousands of divers pass through Puerto Rico on the way to other Caribbean destinations. But if all you see is the airport, you're really missing out. This time, we decided to stop and explore this island that offers old world Spanish charm plus Caribbean diving.
And Puerto Rico features activities for the entire family. Whether you're a nature buff or a history lover or a sports enthusiast, you'll find something to fill your days on this island that the Indians called Bordequín. Puerto Rico dances to a variety of tempos. Rock music in the cities, salsa on the warm beaches, and ballads in the mountains. The country mixes spiritismos and saints, salsa and sand, and of course, great diving.
About a dive trip to Puerto Rico is the chance to explore this historic land. Where else can you find beaches, rainforests, casinos, international cuisine, and a bit of old Spain? Right here, all on one island.
Puerto Rico's history distinguishes the island. On no other island will you see such architecture or hear such stories as in a land with the oldest history in the Caribbean. To explore the beat and tempo of Puerto Rico of today, you need an understanding of the Puerto Rico of yesterday.
Columbus discovered the original inhabitants, the Taino, on his second voyage. The Indians called their lovely island Bordequín, meaning Island of the Brave Lord, and proud locals still use the musical name. Later, the Spanish conquered the Taino. Because of the island's strategic location, a barrage of foreign rivals attacked the island. Puerto Rico was the first stop on the voyage between Europe and the New World. In the last century, after years of internal strife and several devastating hurricanes, the islands fell into the hands of the United States. Puerto Rico had to deal with a foreign and culturally alien government. The question of the proper status for Puerto Rico is still much alive on the island. Should it be a state, completely independent, or retain its current status as a territory? Today, the land has absorbed all the cultures of its past. You'll find Indian architecture and food, Spanish forts and houses, salsa and rock music, all blended in a fascinating mosaic.
Puerto Rico is a major transportation hub in the Caribbean, situated in the center of the other islands. Because Puerto Rico's part of the United States, you won't have to deal with customs. You can spend your U.S. dollars, speak English, drink the water, and eat the exotic food. A modern explorer might take a month and still miss parts of Puerto Rico. We've charted a diver's course for a short week. We start in the southwest at Parguera, then backtrack to the southern coast and Ponce. From there, we tour San Juan and then drive southeast to Humacao and Palmas del Mar. Finally, we tour through the mountains to the northwest coast.
Our trip takes advantage of the varied topography of the island. Throughout the 100-mile width and 32-mile breadth are at least 3 entirely different kinds of landscapes. The north coast features a study in tropical vegetation, palm trees, banana bushes, and jasmine. In the mountains, the greenery is impossibly lush, with orchids and an amazing range of ferns. The southern and eastern coasts are drier, even though it rains a bit each day almost everywhere on the island. And the entire island is a land of hills and mountains. If they were all flattened, Puerto Rico would be 3 times its size. We have a special tour guide for our trip. Suzanne Acevedo is an open-water scuba instructor and underwater model in Puerto Rico. As the first woman certified as an instructor here, she has a native's feel for the waters around her island.
Suzanne, I know it's still a bit unusual for women to be so involved in a sport. How did you get started diving?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to practice a lot of skin diving and snorkeling, and just a friend teach me how to dive for the first time. That was great. I keep underwater, didn't go to the surf to breathe, you know. And I decided to take my basic course, and I keep going and take open water to advanced courses. And a year ago, I did my instructor certification. That was neat.
What's special to you about Puerto Rican diving?
Well, you know, Puerto Rico is a tropical island. It's so beautiful, and doesn't matter it's the weather. You can go for different spot, and the water is always clear, very warm. You know, it's great all the time, around the year. You know, we don't have winter. It's all the time like summer.
Our week's diving tour of Puerto Rico begins in the southwest. Although the region's the furthest from San Juan, it may be the part most tourists would choose to visit if more travelers knew of its pleasures. The Southwest features Puerto Rico at its most typical: oceans and beaches, mountains and metropolitan. We have time in the Southwest only for a short stop at Parguera, situated on a bay with one of the world's most unusual displays of nighttime phosphorescence. Much of the diving here, as it is all around Puerto Rico, is unexplored. Parguera Divers serves the area with 2 boats for small groups of divers. The shop provides full one-on-one instruction.
A half-hour boat ride from Parguera brings you to the wall, which starts at 45 feet, slopes to 90, and then drops off into thousands. The visibility here is usually 100 feet, the best we've found around the island. Shelf Edge, a deep dive over 100 feet, has unusual canals running perpendicular to shore. Big fish are often sighted between the walls. Nearby is Las Rosas, a shallower dive with coral head patches and a sandy bottom, a pattern typical of the diving around the island.
The whole area swarms with small schools of reef fish. Morays tease divers from their holes in the rocks. Rare pillar coral grows in abundance here, as well as sponges and gorgonians. Around Parguera, we see some of the best examples of spadefish we found anywhere. Sometimes called Atlantic spadefish, these schooling fish are sighted around the world in the tropics and in a few temperate regions. They can grow up to 3 feet long and closely resemble the angelfish to which they're related. You can tell them apart because angelfish have an even, continuous dorsal fin, while the spadefish has a small but conspicuous first dorsal fin, a short space, and then a prominent second dorsal. The wide black bands are more distinct on small fish and can be so faded on large ones that they disappear. Scientists know little about the field biology of the spadefish. They're usually found in large schools, eat practically anything, and can survive from deep reefs to pilings and mangrove roots. They seem to like docks, and at night you can hear the clicking and snapping noises they make as they browse on the pilings, searching for barnacles and mollusks.
After diving, you can relax in the town of Parguera. It's a friendly and small fishing village with several kinds of tourist accommodations and restaurants. Houses here extend right out into the sea, making boats more popular than cars. The Villa Parguera sits on the water with rooms opening up to the sea. There's a pool and the hotel has its own dock. This makes it convenient for divers who can simply walk the short distance from their rooms with their gear. All kinds of seabirds fill the area around Parguera, harbored by the extensive mangrove lagoons and canals.
East of Parguera, on the southern coast, lies Ponce, called the Pearl of the South. It's Puerto Rico's second largest city, easily an hour's drive from San Juan. The city is usually sunny because it's located in a rain shadow. You can see, but not feel the rain. The bustling port includes a natural harbor. But the scenic part of Ponce is the magnificent Plaza Central. Because of the plaza, locals call Ponce the most Spanish of Puerto Rico's cities. The double plaza sits amid a pinwheel of old streets and huge fig trees, paths, and parks. The Cathedral of Our Lady of Guadalupe dominates the plaza. The cathedral is named for the patron saint of Ponce.
Yet the most famous building in Ponce isn't the cathedral, it's the Parque de Bombas, Ponce's Victorian firehouse. On an island full of odd architecture, this may well be the most unusual and the most photographed building in Puerto Rico. Other examples of Spanish architecture abound in Ponce, and the city has a European feel, complete with a fine open-air market and the best art museum in the Caribbean.
The diving at Ponce is led by Marine Sports and Dive Shop. The shop runs 2 comfortable small boats and a friendly staff. Marine Sports features trips to nearby Caja de Muerto, or Coffin Island. The island's one of a series of keys off Ponce that are nature preserves. The beach is a popular one for sunning, and there's good swimming there. Divers on Coffin Island can enjoy the drop-off or take a shallow dive over the Coral Trail. The other diving around Ponce on Rosbasillo Reef has a typical Caribbean feel with small tropicals, including queen angels and schools of tangs. The Hotel Melia in Ponce is a popular spot for travelers. The inn has a Spanish flavor arranged around a courtyard with European-style rooms.
On our tour, we take a brisk change from the diving along the south for a trip back to San Juan. Life here is centered around the port with all the sophistication of a large city, including casinos and world-class cuisine. A strip of high-rise hotels bustles with activity along the beach, each featuring an array of water sports. But the heart of the city is Old San Juan. This, the oldest of American settlements, may remind you of the French Quarter in New Orleans, all pastel houses and iron balconies. Reserve an afternoon to wander the old Spanish walks and sip café con leche or piña colada in a balcony restaurant. The 7 narrow streets that make up Old San Juan reveal a cache of history. The center of the old city is the Plaza Colón, or Columbus Square, built around a statue of the explorer. Casablanca, the original governor's mansion, is a must-stop for visitors. Built for Ponce de Leon in 1521, it's the oldest house in the city and was used for years as a shelter against the attacks of the Caribs. Now it houses the Institute for Advanced Studies, but provides remembrances of colonial rule of both Spain and the U.S.
San Juan includes 2 well-preserved and interpreted Spanish forts. El Mojo is the largest. The fort commands San Juan Bay with 6 levels of gun emplacements and walls that tower 140 feet over the Atlantic. The visitor may appreciate the parks and views more than the architecture. There's a massive archway facing the bay with views of crashing surf. The fort served well when Drake attacked in 1595, but Cumberland's attack pierced the rear of the fort. The English held the fort for 3 months, and that was the last time the post would fall until American fire took it during the Spanish-American War in 1898.
The second fort, El Castillo de San Cristobal, sits 150 feet above the waves, reflecting the best of 17th century military architecture. The fort includes an intricate network of tunnels, battlements, and sub-forts to ensure that no one could capture San Cristobal without taking all of its ramparts first. No one ever did. Later, the first shot of the Spanish-American War was fired from San Cristobal's walls. Take time to enjoy the view from the battlements.
In the heart of the old city, the San Juan Cathedral, an unusual beige and white structure, sits next to El Convento. The former convent is now a popular luxury hotel and restaurant. Nearby is the city gates, the only one of the original portals remaining from the wall that surrounded this part of the city. Sailors used to moor their ships in the bay, ferry ashore, and enter through the gates to prayer service. Down the street from the cathedral sits the Parque de los Palomas, where thousands of pigeons are housed by the city wall. The park is popular with children and perfect for viewing the bay. Local legend has it that a grateful family constructed the nearby Capillo de Cristo when a horse rider fell over the cliffs and survived.
After San Juan, we take a break from the city and head to the southeast coast. The industrial town of Humacao anchors this coast, and the nearby resort development of Palmas del Mar welcomes travelers. Jim Abbott and the professionals at Coral Head Divers brought diving to this side of the island a few years ago, and they are still discovering new sights. One of the best equipped operators on the island, Coral Heads uses 2 well-run boats and a full supply of rental gear. Their comfortable boats leave from the harbor at Palmas del Mar. The trip itself is a visual treat. Pastel, European-style townhouses line the wharf and classy villas cling to the cliff.
All the dive sites are within 10 to 20 minutes of the harbor, so it doesn't take long to get into the water. Here you'll find coral heads and canyons to explore in a labyrinth of designs. It's a good place to spot morays, sharks, and other large critters. One special site called the Reserve blooms with gorgonians, antler coral, and tube sponges. Small fish and crab, as well as star coral, flourish here. After diving, the luxury resort of Palmas del Mar offers divers a well-sighted view of Vieques Sound on some of the island's most dazzling beachfront. Billed as the new American Riviera, Palmas has 20 tennis courts, 2 pools, 8 restaurants, and a golf course. For children, there's a playground, riding stables, and miniature golf. The resort's popular for families, and it's hard to imagine something you could want for a family vacation that Palmas del Mar wouldn't have.
The resort is a perfect jumping-off point to the pride of the Southeast, El Yunque. It's the only tropical forest in the United States National Forest System. The 28,000 acres surrounding El Yunque Peak offers a chance to experience a variety of climates and ecosystems. The park receives 240 inches of rain annually and contains Pico del Toro, the island's highest peak. Hike to one of several lookout towers for a bird's-eye view of the premier attractions.
From El Yunque, we drive through the mountains to the opposite side of the island on the northwest coast. Along the drive through the hills, the unusual karst mountains stand out. We pass through cavern country, one of the most mysterious and least visited areas of the island. The Kamwe Cavern Park offers a chance for a visit to one of the largest cave systems in the Western Hemisphere. The caves are actually a series of karstic sinkholes connected by the Kamwe River. The river flows underground through soft limestone for much of its course to the Atlantic. The largest cavern in this limestone world was recently opened to the public.
Visitors take a tram ride down the mountain to the sinkhole entrance. There, a gaping mouth leads to lit pathways. A waterfall trails through the adjoining sinkhole. Adventurous divers with special training and arrangements can also dive through the subterranean caverns. For the average visitor, the well-designed grounds provide spots for viewing the karst mountains and for picnicking.
The small town of Isabela is organized around a Spanish-style plaza with streets that flow down to the sea. Isabela is more famous for surfing than diving as the site of last year's World Championships. But more and more people are discovering the pleasures of beach diving here. You won't mind the stroll down or the surface intervals between dives because the playas here are some of Puerto Rico's best.
There's a whole world of caverns and boulders just offshore. At 30 feet, you can explore the crevices, tunnels, and turns for an hour if you wish. We stalked the local secret, a shy manatee that makes this area his home, but alas, he never showed. But it may be worth a trip to dive here just in case. Isabela is served by a large and cheerful dive shop, La Cueva Submarina. The shop also caters to surfers and has a large selection of swimsuits, as well as dive instruction and rental gear. Pleasant accommodations for divers in Isabela are available in cabañas at the Villas del Mar How, located right on the beach. One of the other unusual features of the area around Isabela is a number of Pasofino stables. These noble animals are bred for show as well as the beach.
One thing that's left a lasting impression on us is the warmth of Puerto Rico's people. Wherever we go, we find friendly support for our adventure. Whether you walk the fine beaches, dive under her waters, or climb through her mountains, be sure to get to know the folks who call Puerto Rico home, for they are the secret soul of the island.
From all of us at Sea Fans, thank you for being with us.
You make it all possible.
I'm Lynn Eisaguirre.
And I'm Jimmy Ibbotson, wishing you safe diving till we see you again next time on Sea Fans Video Magazine.
Sea Fans is a production of Passage Home Communications, the video publishing company that also brings you Set Sail Video Magazine, the new magazine on videotape for sailors and other water sports enthusiasts. Look for Set Sail and Sea Fans at marinas and dive stores everywhere, or call 1-800-622-8767 to subscribe.